You made a point about constitution having to recognize the inherent dharma if we are pushing for it,
Right.
and it would have to fall back on the shastras for it to understand what dharma is. And shastras overwhelmingly they promote monarchy. So is that something you think that constitution would have to recognize monarchy, or if dharma has to refactor itself and project itself on the currently existing democracy, who takes the charge of that refactor, the lawyers or the acharyas? Thank you.
So first thing is the belief that Dharma has prescribed monarchy may be dislodged by the example of the Vrishnis, who existed as a confederacy, not exactly as a monarchy. Okay? So I don't think it's a question of that. I'd rather go with a slightly different approach to it. Since 2014, ours has morphed into a presidential form of election one way or the other, where you're voting for an individual more than a party. Right? There are times that there are several people who may not vote for the party had it not been for the same figure standing at the top. And precisely because the other side has absolutely no options to offer. Right? And each of those options are malicious, diabolical, anti-dharmic, and therefore anti-Bharat. Now, therefore, I don't think fixation on on monarchy is something that has to do with it. It is possible to look at structural systems. Here is where I will find a square inch area of meeting ground with someone who I don't believe are dharmics, the Charvakas. I don't think of them as dharmics at all. They have no role. They are not to be treated as dharmics, and they cannot have a say whatsoever when it comes to the course of dharma or the treatment of dharmic institutions, much less on what needs to be treated as reform for dharmic institutions. The Charvaka does not believe in moksha, and therefore he cannot speak of an institution that puts faith in moksha. He is an existentialist. He comes as close as possible to a Hindu Marxist. He is not to be discussed. And he is not to be heard in this equation. The only thing that I'm interested in asking is, if the essence is this, in protection of the core, what structure can I come out with in the current day which propagates, advances the cause of the protection of the core? And assuming that the constitution or the concept of a constitution, and therefore constitutionalism is here to stay, then how do I use this document to further that particular goal? And in that sense, can we look at more options where one of the requirements for appointment to an elected position or a constitutional position is the subscription to the concept of dharma as a form of the oath itself? Then I'm looking at people who will have no other option but to swear allegiance by dharma. And I again repeat, dharma is not religion. Okay? I will simply call it as the onto-politico-socio-theological experience of this land. That's how I would want to loosely define it. I am no authority, I am no expert. The second part of your question, lawyers give too much credit to themselves. No wonder the judiciary asserts independence over all other forms of organs, right? I would rather go with a situation where I seek the guidance of dharmic scholars who understand dharmic statecraft and then serve or use lawyers as bridges to get the job done from a contemporary perspective without using the word modernity or modern perspective. The need of the hour is someone like me who is interested in achieving that end has no dharmic training, and someone who has dharmic training has no way of making himself, let's say, heard or relatable to a modern statecraft audience or a contemporary statecraft audience. Therefore, where is the bridge that effectively gulfs, or let's say that builds, or gulfs this chasm, that closes this chasm and says, okay, this is how you talk to each other. The handshake is in spurts, because half the time I'm trying to look for English translatables for Sanskrit terms, which will never be complete. And in fact, the number of papers that I've seen where they try and wrap their heads around the word dharma in English itself is proof of the fact that there are multiple untranslatables to put it in the words of a person who I don't get along with, who has written a book on untranslatables, right? Now, therefore, we start with Brit scholarship in the hope that more and more lawyers will feel the need, and especially constitutional lawyers, feel the need to draw from our own sources when they speak of constitutionalism. That is something that is sorely missing today.